Hi, I'm Clever Ghoul, but you can call me Nikki. And this week, we're going to talk about my favorite craft supplies. The craft supplies that I cannot craft without. Craft supplies that I think everyone should have on hand at all times. Even though this list isn't in a real order, I am going to work up to my number one tried and true supply that I always need. One supply that I always use in some way or another is trash or recycled materials, really. So if I have cardboard boxes left over from packages, or if something was wrapped in tissue paper, or if there's little bits of plastic odds and ends that are in my recycling bin, I tend to always utilize that in some way. So a good example of this is when I paper mache. When doing paper mache, you obviously need paper to pull into strips, to dip into glue and make the paper mache. Most people will use a newspaper or something like that. And while I think the newspaper is great, I don't get one delivered to me personally. What I do have, however, is a toilet paper subscription, and it comes in these funky little tissue wrappers. So every time I use a new roll, I do have a little bag that I just shove the used tissue paper in, because I always end up using it. So to me, it just seems like, why throw it away? Even items like water bottles or any sort of drink cup, I'll wash it out and reuse it, either for when I'm painting as a water cup, or I'll use it in some way. I just think reusing what you can is a really great way to start. And if you're someone who doesn't know what to start with craft-wise, just save some of those used materials. You don't have to spend money at the store. You really don't. I mean, obviously there's craft supplies you're gonna have to spend money on, but this is one that's great. We all have access to it in one way or another, and why not reuse it? Another item that I think everyone should have is a metal ruler or metal straight edge of some sort. And that kind of goes hand in hand with another item on this list, which is the X-Acto knife, specifically a number 11. Number 11 refers to the blades. As you can see here, I have a fresh pack of blades right here. Number 11 is the size. Also, what's great about this little package of blades is right here in this slot, when you're done with a blade, a used blade, you can put it right in there and then throw this whole thing in the trash. I still duct tape it and then throw it in the trash because you don't want someone to accidentally cut themselves when they're grabbing a trash bag, but that's why this little thing is great. Number 11 is just kind of the standard X-Acto knife blade, and I realize I'm going on a tangent because I meant to talk about rulers, but I'm gonna get into that. When you're using an X-Acto knife, you're going to need a metal ruler. And the reason is that this blade is so sharp that it will cut into your plastic ruler, it will cut into a piece of paper, it'll cut into any other straight edge you're using. So really you want to have a metal ruler so that it can go with your X-Acto knife. And it is something to be careful of because it is called an X-Acto knife. I grew up with a mom who's an artist and she always had these around, but I always knew never to touch them. So if you have kids, make sure that they are far away from them or they understand safety when it comes to this tool, because it can be really dangerous. Another reason I love X-Acto knives is because you can really get in anywhere that you need to get into to cut something. That's what they're designed for. They're for precision cutting and trimming. Well, I think another thing on this list should be a sharp pair of scissors. As good as sharp scissors are, they can't get into little nooks and crannies the way that this can. And so for that reason, this is something that I will always have on hand and always be using. Obviously, another reason a ruler is important is because you might need to measure things sometimes. Just get a metal ruler, a tool you'll always have and you'll always use. The next few items I'm going to kind of lump together: acrylic paint, paint palettes, and a variety of brushes. You're probably going to end up painting at some point or another, and spray paint is a great option. Some people live in places where they can't go outside to spray paint, whether it be the weather or the apartment they live in, etc. It's not always convenient to spray paint. So for me, using these acrylic paints from the craft store, they're just great. They're cheap. They're usually around $1 or $2, and that can change depending on the finish, if they're metallic or whatnot, but always great to have a variety of colors on hand because you never know what you're going to need. I will say that these are kind of thin, and so sometimes you have to do multiple layers, which can be frustrating. In that case, I would say go for a better grade acrylic paint, something from the basics line. Don't go too crazy with it. Paint gets really expensive. At the end of the day, you just need a pretty standard, simple acrylic paint to get the job done. I just love that with these, you can buy all these different colors. They're cheap to replace, and for crafting reasons, they're just great to use. Now, going along with paint, obviously we need brushes. When it comes to paintbrushes, there's a seemingly endless variety of what you can use. I love having these standard sort of paintbrush sets from the craft store. These different synthetic brushes that usually come in sets. This like rectangular is good for straight lines. These little ones are good for details. You really can't go wrong with just having a set of mixed brushes like this on hand because you will use them. You'll always use them. Now there's other brushes too. These are called chip brushes, or chippy brushes, sometimes you'll see them called. These you can also get at the craft store. These are great for when you just need to do big areas, get big areas done. If you want to do any dry brushing, these are great to add texture. These are also just cheap and easy to have on hand. So along with your standard paintbrush set, I would recommend getting a few different sizes of these, because think about it, you don't want to be sitting there painting something big with these tiny little brushes. Now another one, some people will argue that they don't use these, but those are these little sponge brushes. They're great for getting a big wash of color or varnish or something on. Now these personally, in my opinion, are great for decoupage or for doing paper mache, just getting some extra coverage of that glue or paste going up the project. And these come in a variety of sizes too. They're great to get broad strokes, get some finish on, get something done. Now going along with paint, something that I think you should have is a paint palette or a stack of plastic paint palettes. I know you can just use a paper plate or something in your house, but these are usually, I think, less than $1 each, but you can always find packs of them where they're under $5 usually. As you can see, this one's been well loved. I don't know how long I've had this, but it's definitely been a long time, and they're great. You just keep reusing them. You can mix your paint in them, and I think if you're gonna paint anything, you should have something to mix it in, and something to mix it in that isn't going to end up in a landfill soon. You know, if you keep using the paper plates, you're going to be throwing away a million paper plates every use. Whereas this, like I said, this is years old. Now, we're getting into the nitty gritty, the end of the list here, things that are kind of my desert island craft supplies. I don't know why you would need craft supplies if you were on a deserted island sort of situation, but why not? I mean, to be fair, Tom Hanks did craft a mighty friend out of Wilson. Anyway, I'm trapped on a deserted island. These are the craft supplies I need. First things first, masking tape. Masking tape in any shape or size, great to have around. It can hold things down while you're painting. It can be used in paper mache. It can be used to hold down items before you glue them so you can kind of see what your plan is. It can be used to make a label. You can also use it to close your chip bags if you can't do that fancy chip bag thing that everyone did during quarantine. I still can't do it. You saw my video last week where I was making a Monstera plant. The base of that wire is covered in foil, which was the trash component because it was used foil, and masking tape because I knew that this trash paper would adhere to the stem with the masking tape, so it made a great base for the paper mache. I just think you can't go wrong. Now, this item I think has made it into almost every video of mine. That is my tried and true Mod Podge. I know it says Mod Podge, but I call it Mod Podge. This is one of those Mandela effect things, you know, the Berenstain Bears or whatever. I would have bet the farm that this was Mod Podge, not Mod Podge. But here we are, and I'm gonna keep saying it as Mod Podge. But hands down, something I always turn to. It's versatile, it's for decoupage, it's for paper mache, it is sealer. Although if you're gonna have something that's gonna get wet, maybe find a different sealer because they're not waterproofers, you know, they're just glue. But whether it be matte or glossy or super glossy, they have one with glitter in it, they have a glow in the dark. I buy these
over and over and over again.
When I made the mini dessert cart, I glazed my petit fours with a glossy. When I made my paper mache pickle hat, I used this to help stick all the paper mache on. In fact, I use this a lot for paper mache when I'm being lazy and don't want to make a paste. This is the way to go. And what I love about Mod Podge is I can apply it with my fingers, with a brush. They make their own tools, but it always gives me the result I want, but it seals. I've used it in costumes, I've used it in home crafts that I've made, I've used it in all sorts of applications. If you saw my charms video, they make a product called Dimensional Magic that leaves almost a resin-like coating on top of things. And when I made the charm bracelet on the channel, I'm just saying, plaid, I'll say it correctly, Mod Podge, sponsor a girl, because I feel like personally I've kept you guys afloat just with the amount of Mod Podge I've bought over the years. So love you, holy grail item. And now, last but not least, if I could only have one craft supply, this is what it would be. I'll say before I show her to you, she's been with me at least a decade. She's rough around the edges, but it is my tried, my true glue gun. Charlie's Angels. They didn't have guns, did they? A glue gun and glue sticks. I have bags and bags of these, and every year I end up having to get more bags of these little mini glue stick refills because I use this more than I use anything. The mini glue gun specifically is what you want, and let me tell you why. The big glue guns, they're very alluring, right? They've got multiple settings. Sometimes they come with fancy tips and you can do all sorts of stuff with them, and I'm not gonna knock them, and I'm not gonna lie and say that I have not had a big glue gun, nor have I not lusted after one. I still do from time to time. If you've ever used a glue gun, you have a story about being burned. At least one. I have multiple. These mini ones can hurt you. However, the big boys, those are so hot. I mean, this gets hot and you have to be really careful, but the big glue gun, that thing, it rivals the sun when it comes to how hot that thing gets. You can burn yourself so badly with a big glue gun, way worse than you ever could with this little bitty. And don't get me wrong, you can still burn yourself badly with this, but with the big glue gun, no. I say this from experience. I burned myself really badly. The glue comes out a lot faster. There's a lot more of it. It's way, way, way hotter. Don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. I'm not kidding. When I burned myself with the big glue gun, it was a bad burn. This, you're gonna be fine in a day. It's gonna suck in the moment. You're gonna be fine in a day. Just get this. Also, in the mini ones, they make these fabric hot glue sticks. So if you ever need to glue fabric, you got that for your mini gun. This thing really does do it all. Like, you can glue anything to anything with this for the most part. I have a lot of crafty and artsy friends in my life, and I asked them, what's on your list? And every single person said, top 3 item, glue gun. I know I'm talking a lot about it and I'm so passionate about it, but this is truly man's greatest invention. Like, seatbelts, who cares? We have glue guns. I may need help. So yeah, that's that. Those are my tried and true craft supplies that I continuously buy over and over again, that I use all the time, and that's what I recommend. Crafting and all of these supplies and tools are super subjective. What may work well for me may not be for you at all, but that's my top list of things I would use. And honestly, I would love to hear what yours are. If you had a top 5 on a deserted island to bring, what would they be? Please feel free to leave them in the comments below. All right, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at cleverghoul.yt, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!